Well, looky here. You are listening to someone who is bold, authentic, diverse, unpredictable. Baby, I am unapologetically Ramon, and you have entered my zone, the QB zone, baby. Hello, somebody.
and 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 there's no objection.
So I felt like in talking about people who enrich the youth, I would be remiss if I did not allow this person or invite this person to come on board. This is a person who has years of experience working with the youth. This is someone that I had the privilege of having as a supervisor for almost 2 years. And more than anything else, is an amazing, amazing, amazing friend. So I want to introduce to you guys Mr. Dedrick Reeves.
Hello, hello everyone.
So how's it going, Mr. Reeves? How are you today?
I'm doing well. Just finished the work day. It's been a long day.
You've been a social worker. Those days are definitely very, very long. Let's talk about how Dedrick Reeves even ended up in this field. Like, because you've been in this field a long time. Run down your resume for the people.
Okay, so yeah, I've been in this field about 21 years. Um I started right out of high school. Basically what happened is I had a friend that asked me what I was interested in or what I wanted to go to school for. And at the time, I was like, I don't know, maybe business or something. And he was like, well, have you ever thought about working with kids? And I was like, me working with kids? Nah, I'm good. So he was like, you should think about it. So I said, you know what, you're right. So what I ended up doing, my very, very first job was children and families. And what that was a DJJ level 6 program. So I'm 19. The youth is, I think, the up until 18 or 17 and a half.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like a second older than them. However, I find myself working there as one of the staff. So that job was short though because they had that business was, they had a lot of complaints about them how they run their organization. So then I went over to Litman Youth Shelter, which is through Lutheran Services, and basically what that job was a shelter where they took community youth. If I'm having a problem with my son, say that we're having a disagreement, or I feel like I need some respite, so I would contact this shelter, and then they will intake them and give you a couple of days, and they'll provide like counseling services, family group services or whatever. So I was there, and I was a shift supervisor on the 311. So I worked there for a few years. And then I also had a part-time job at Children Home Society where I was a supervisor on the weekend. And those was with the foster care youth. Most of them was young babies that was up for adoption. So I was promoted to case manager at Lutheran Services, and that's where I worked closely with a therapist, and also we was receiving the cases from BSO, our sheriff's office, at the time before ChildNet came in existence. So I was there for a couple of years. Um, I ended up getting married, and we relocated to North Carolina. So when I moved to Greenville, North Carolina, very, very small, I ended up applying for a job with the county, Edgecombe County, and I was doing food stamps and Medicaid at the time. I stayed up there for a few years, came back down, and started working at the department, DJJ. So I was working at the juvenile justice department in our detention center in Broward, and I was a corporate officer for a few years. So I went through the police academy. So I worked with the youth that picked up charges. They came in there. I did intake and processing, and then I also ran the mod. So I would run the little boys unit, and then I would run they call it B1, which is like 17, 16, 17, just turning 17. So I was there for a few years, and then I applied for ChildNet, which has always been my passion, and more so in psychology versus DJJ. So my undergrad is in criminal justice, and then my master's is in social work. So once I got to ChildNet in 2009, I've been there. This year will make 12 years that I've been at ChildNet. So I got over there. I brought my experience that I have, and then also let me back up. Prior to even working in this field, it ended up becoming a passion because when I sat and I thought about when I was growing up, I used to see a counselor because I was giving my mom and dad a lot of problems, and I was also prescribed psychotropic medication at the age of 8. So I took that for a while, and then my mom decided that no, I don't want him on that. Um, I just pray, and eventually they weaned me off that. So I would see a therapist weekly, and we would have individual counseling, and then we would have family counseling. So I share that story with the youth that I come in contact with, especially at DJJ. I would share it with them and just letting them know that, in spite your upbringing or the trials or whatever, that you can be successful. You could be someone. Thank God I never was arrested as a juvenile or an adult, so I have a clean record. But back to ChildNet, when I started out, I was a case manager, and then I worked my way up to going to the youth services side, where you deal with the youth and young adults that's aging out of foster care, and that was my nook. So once I got over there, I really blossomed because I found myself, okay, the teenagers, I can relate. They think I'm young like them. They think I'm cool and all of the different words they use, drip and swag. And from there, I was a lead advocate. And then I became a supervisor. And then I became a supervisor over 3 programs or whatever. Now currently, and I helped a lot of the young adults. To this day, they call me. Even the ones that I saw in DJJ, a lot of them was end up being foster kids or whatever. Um, so now I'm a director over case management. So I deal back with the reunification, trying to reunify the children back with their families or find some type of permanency. So that's what I do now. However, I do have that passion with the young adults, but I'm pretty much able to, work with any age. It doesn't even matter. And I have some that's up to the age of 28 that I still keep in communication with. And a lot of them call me, dad, their uncle, um, you know, grandpa or whatever. So I just believe in, being that positive role model for them or whatever. And I'm very consistent, and I do what I say I'm gonna do, and I don't lead them where I make promises that I can't keep. So I'm a man of my word. And I think that over the years, why the kids they gravitate to me or whatever, because I definitely do what I say I'm gonna do. So
And
that's pretty much
yeah,
my my history in a nutshell.
right. And I can definitely say that, I've seen firsthand the effectiveness that you have with the youth. And it's always been amazing for me because you know how to turn it on, how to turn it off. You know how to be diverse. You know, you can't deal with this youth the same way you would deal with that one. You can't deal with this situation the same way you would deal with that one. So you've always had diversity in how you affect the youth. And I think it's been very beneficial in the fact that consistency you mentioned. A lot of these youth have had multiple caseworkers, multiple foster parents, and typically when they do something bad, they are judged, they are kicked out, whatever, whatever. But when you as a caseworker or you as a presence in their life is consistent through the good and bad, I think that also kind of benefits. And I think that's why youth who have aged out, youth who have gone on with their lives, youth who may no longer be on your caseload, still reaches out to you because it speaks to the effectiveness of how you affected their life. Do you think that maybe personal experiences allowed you to have an extra level of being effective with the youth?
I can say yes, and then I can also say I think it's just my personality. We're in our family, especially on my mom's side, we're very caring. Like, and I even teach it for my kids that I have, my biological kids. So, you know, I donate my clothes and my shoes, and I donate their stuff, and I take them with me. And so when we go down to the homeless shelter, I show them and I explain to them that, you know, when it's something that you know you don't either wear anymore, you can't wear anymore, then you give it away, or whatever. And that's a good deed. You know, you here to help people. So I think just me personally being that caring person that I am. I mean, it don't even happen to be like kids. It can be even adults or whatever. So I just try to do right by folks or whatever because I can be that person that fell on my luck and need that person to lift me up. So I just kind of always put that in the back of my mind, and I make sure that I don't look down on anybody. I meet them where they are or whatever. So
yeah, and I you know, I think about some of the cases that I've had while under you, and just even some of the cases that you took on. One thing I always liked about you as well is that you are, although you're someone who may be in a supervisory position, you get in the trenches with your worker. I know a lot of times certain people become supervisors and it's like, oh no, they're too good, or, you know, I'm a supervisor now, so I don't have to do that. I think it speaks to your quality of a worker and quality of a person because you won't hesitate to get in the trenches with your workers. I also think that, you know, when you mention meet them where they're at, you know, sometimes you have to get a little crunk with them, for lack of better words, you know, and I'm just thinking of all the different times I've seen you how to get, you know, sometimes you got to give tough love, and sometimes you got to get in there behind. And I'm sure when I'm growing up, when you was growing up, we all had those moments where our parental unit had to get in our behind. Has that ever? Because I know with me sometimes, you know, I would give too many chances, and that would drive you crazy.
Right.
Do you think, has it ever been hard for you to give the tough love?
No, it haven't. One thing about me, I believe in being consistent with them. So I got to be consistent, but I'm going to be fair and I'm going to be firm. So I believe in consistent, fair, and firm. And my kids' mom say that I'm considered major pain because, you know, I just like things order, and that's how I was raised. I was raised by my mom and my stepdad or whatever. My mom is from the country. She is from a little small town in Georgia called Millen, and it was just how we was taught. We couldn't go out the door without any shoes on. We couldn't eat out. We couldn't eat outside. We couldn't eat at nobody's house. If it was raining, you had to come home because my grandma felt like you was tracking up someone's floor. So that stuff stuck with me or whatever. And back then, I used to be like, they tripping. But then I find myself sounding like my mom them now with my kids or whatever. But it's never been a problem with me giving tough love or whatever, because it's all out of love. You know, I want the best for you. So that's why I'm so passionate about what I'm saying to you. And yeah, it's been times where I had to get with the get down or whatever. And I think that's through my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody have a way of how they address something or their own style or
Right.
whatever. And normally I get pretty much them to do what they supposed to do. I mean, maybe 3% that would
Right.
just be like, I'm just not doing it. But for the most time, my approach or whatever, I'm able to get them to understand why I'm asking them to do this or whatever. But yeah, you did give too many chances at times.
And you know and it would be crazy because we would be like, listen now, if Dedrick find out, or if because at some point, if we not putting our foot down, then you step in. And then we tell him, listen, we tried to tell you XYZ. You know the man crazy. You know if the man find out, he gonna hold your carpet to the fire. You know what I'm saying? Hold your
Yep,
foot to the
yep,
fire.
yep. Big, because you gotta be fair, firm, and consistent. I truly believe that, and that has been successful for me dealing with the youth in the different populations that I have dealt with in the past. So
Yeah, and you have to be one of the most, and I thought I was structured and organized, and I am, but you have to be one of the most structured and organized and proactive people I've ever met. I remember this is probably my first year working under you. I'll never forget this. And you had sent an email to the unit and told us to do something. I want to say probably by like 3, 4 o'clock, just guessing. And you called me, I was in the field. I think you called me like 12, 1 o'clock, asking me had I done it yet. And I was like, it's not due to 3, 4 o'clock. But you like, what you doing now? Nothing. But you didn't ever give it to me. Why are you waiting until the last
why
minute?
would you wait? Right,
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
but that's just a testament to how structured and organized you are, because if things do happen, you can adapt and you can react adequately, because things could have possibly happened at
Right.
2:30, and now I can't submit what I need to submit when I had all this other time. You know what I'm saying? So I will say that I think that being under your leadership,
Mhm.
and anyone who works under your leadership, if they embrace everything you teach and how you teach it, it really will make you a better leader, a better worker, and a better person. And so for that, has always been one of the main things I've appreciated. But God knows I got all kind of memories, especially when I was a court liaison. And so for years, and then I come under you, and now I'm on a case management side, and we got the home visits, and I'm not used to having to do these. I ain't had to do a home visit in years. And so it's like, they got to be in every XYZ days. And I just remember that was just a hard thing for me to get used to, just with the
Yes.
timeline, because you have to do it by a certain time.
Yeah, you definitely struggled at first.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna hurt him if we on this list one more time. And I think a lot of that came from, I always had tough supervisors, especially when I got to ChildNet. I had a supervisor. I think she might be a director down in Miami at Citrus, but she was really tough. Right out of training, I had 2 cases. I remember a time I was carrying 40 cases and I wasn't even certified. I had 40 kids, I'm sorry, and I wasn't even certified.
Oh, wow.
And I'm an aggressive worker and I'm determined to make sure that I do my best. So I remember we would have supervision, and her supervision lasts for hours, and she wrote in red. So my thing was, I'm gonna come in at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm gonna make sure everything is done. So when we meet, she don't have much on her list, if anything, or whatever. And I was determined because I was like, I don't like follow-ups and stuff. I want to make sure that I have this files because we're serving families and children. So she was tough. And then of course, she was your director at the time, my supervisor, Yasmin, who was very tough on me, but she did this because she said she wanted to prepare me or
Right.
whatever. And I thank her for it today because I'm now a director and I see what she's talking about and what she was talking about before or
Right.
whatever. So in this job, you have to be proactive and not reactive. And you can have a to-do list, but in social work, something can pop off, and what you thought you were gonna do A, B, and C, you're
Hello.
not doing that. You at Z,
Yeah.
handling the situation or whatever. So I always believed in being proactive, and I do that in my life. Why wait till the last minute when I can do it now
Right.
or whatever? So even though I gave that deadline of 4 o'clock, I'm like, do it now. I just
Right.
gave that because I know I needed to give one, but in reality, I want you to do it right then and there. But I know I had to give a grace period or
Uh-huh.
whatever, and it's part of my impulses and stuff when it
Yeah.
comes to that. So.
No, I think it's great to be there, but like I said, it definitely teaches you a lot. It definitely taught me some things to carry on, guys, whatever profession I'm in. What would you say during all your years in social work was a rose and a thorn for you? What was that moment that was just so rewarding, and then the other one that was just, kind of rubbed you wrong way? It didn't feel too good.
Okay. So what didn't feel too good is when I first started in this field years ago, it might have been 2001. I was a supervisor at Children Home Society, and there was this little baby named Jawan. And in my mind, that was my little boy. So every time I would come or whatever, he would look for me or whatever, I looked for him. So this particular weekend that I came to work, I'm like, where's Jawan? Where's Jawan? And it was like, oh, he ended up going to a foster home and got adopted. And I was devastated because I was so attached to him.
Right.
So I think that was one of the times I cried. And what you said, the good thing that happened. I had a youth that name was Melvin Fernandez. And this youth, when I first got the case, his mom, well, he came into care because his mom was abusing prescription drugs and he was doing the same. And I ended up fighting hard and got him into a drug facility for about 6 months to almost a year. His mom had supervised visits, so she didn't really utilize her visits. So what I would do, he had passes after you reach a certain level.
Right.
So I would take the time out on the weekend, pick him up, spend time with him, take him to the movies, take him to the mall, because his mom, I don't know where his dad was. So when he graduated from the drug facility, he wrote this letter, and I still have the letter. I have the letter, and thank God I did not read the letter when we was at his celebration. I read it when I got in the car.
Okay.
And when I read the letter, I can't remember it verbatim, but it pretty much said about how I was a father figure. He looked up to me like a father figure, and he thanked me so much. And he actually kind of like wrote in the letter, gave a timeline when he first met me, and how I was fighting so hard for him to go into this drug facility because he was taking so many drugs that he one time was passed out in a car at a hotel, almost overdose. And he just expressed his gratitude and appreciation. And it was like a 3-page letter. And I just broke down in the car because I was like, I touched somebody's life,
Mhm.
I'm getting emotional. So I touched somebody's life, and that meant a lot to me.
Right.
So see, I'm emotional because I'm passionate about it. So that meant a lot to me because I know that I can't touch everybody.
Right.
Everybody's not going to have a success story, but the fact that I had one, he had one, and I was a part of it, that meant the world to me.
Absolutely.
So I seen him a couple of years ago. He was doing okay, but that was just like one of the few stories that I can mention. I mean, I done did stuff for a lot of youth, but that one really tug at my heart because he expressed how he felt from day one or whatever, and how I never gave up on him. And we thinking that they're not noticing the good work that we do,
Absolutely.
but they are.
Hmm.
So that was evidence in that letter or whatever. So it really made me feel really good. And I kept the letters and I never get rid of them. But
Right.
yeah, I kept the letters. So those are two stories that I can say I cried for both, for the good and the bad or whatever.
Absolutely.
So
And I think when we are, because you're not gonna come to social work with the goal of being rich. You know, those who come in for the right reason, you coming in because you know your heart is attached to it. You know, I've heard people say it's not hard work, but it's hard work. And so
mhm.
when you're that dedicated and passionate about your work, you don't pay attention to or keep track of how you're necessarily affecting this person's life. And then something happens and they share it with you. And then you really realize how you really impacted. But in the moment, you're just doing your job. You're just doing what you feel like you have to do. You know, I'll probably say that a thorn for me was earlier on in my social work career when I was back in Central Florida, and had a lady who, beautiful, talented, smart lady, and she was with a man who was beating her, and he would beat her in front of the kids. And no matter what interventions, what services, no matter what you put in place, she always found a way to go back. And I remember one time I went to do a home visit, and something in my spirit said, "Oh, by the way, he wasn't supposed to be in the house." Like restraining order, it was that kind of seriousness. And I remember one time going to do a home visit, and something in my spirit told me the man is in this house. And the way the house was set up, it was a small apartment. When you walked in, over here in a corner, she had a dining room table. And I was on the opposite end of the dining room table. And I said to myself, if this man does anything, I'm stuck because the front door is all the way down here. I'm probably gonna make it over here to the sliding glass door. Thank God it's on the first floor. And it was just the way she was acting when I would ask questions, the way that the son would respond when I would interact, it was just different. And something in my spirit told me this man is in this house. I said, I bet you he's back in the room somewhere hiding. Normally, we finna search through the rooms, because this was more of a violent man involving guns and stuff. I wasn't finna go up in there and check it. I'm sorry. And couldn't find out he was in there. I had asked her later on. And so I guess my thorn would be that no matter the services, no matter how many times I tried to help, making myself available outside of work hours, you know, she went back, you know, and she had to learn some hard lessons, you know. So I would say that would be one. I would probably say my rose will be Lamar. When I first met him, I remember, first of all, I had to do a home visit at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, first of all. But I went and I was like, here's this young man with all this attitude. You don't want to be here, I don't want to be here. And so I recognized the walls earlier on. And this was someone who had went through a lot of troubles, being in foster care at a very young age, and you know, separation from siblings because they were older and went on with their life out of state. Unfortunately, he dealt with grief at a young age, losing his mom prior to me even getting his case. And so really bonding. And I don't know, it was just something about that young man. I still to this day have never had someone affect me the way he did. And what I thought was so weird was when I first got in social work, they taught you not to get attached. Do not get attached to nobody on your caseload. But we just clicked, and it was just, I can't explain it. And I remember many good memories, but I remember you telling me, you know, you're not the only one on your caseload, right? Because I would just revolve my entire case. The wrong thing you can do is tell a kid you their favorite. That is the last thing that you need to tell any youth you're working with. Because baby, they finna use that.
Right. And they definitely teach us to not just have our favorites. And, you know, we have some that we like more than others or whatever. I wouldn't say it verbally out my mouth, but I might do a little more. So for this kid, I might, when I'm with him, buy him something to eat or her something to eat or whatever. With the other one, I'm like, I'm taking you back to group home. You can eat what they got there or whatever. So those are the difference. But yeah, Lamar, how well I know, or whatever. But I mean, I had a whole bunch of them, and then one get mad, the other one, because this
Oh
one
God, yeah.
like, oh well, I thought I was, instead why you giving them all the attention? So it definitely do, but it's hard. But you're human, so you care, And it's been many kids, and I know bringing up Lamar, but it had been many kids just thinking about Lamar's situation that has is deceased. I had um a youth that I picked up from DJJ that I was very close to, even though he wasn't even he wasn't in the PES program. But I told him I'll pick him up because of the relationship that I had with him. And then later on, after he got released, maybe a couple months later, he ended up getting killed or whatever. He was murdered or whatever. So we do have that part too, where these youth, we're their family.
Yeah.
We're their dad, their mom, their grandparents, whatever we're their family members, and they look.
Therapist.
Yeah, we're a therapist. So it's a lot, and it's definitely not about the money. Because if that was the case, I wouldn't be in this field. It's you definitely have to love and enjoy what you do, and it's rewarding when you have success stories, like today, I reached out to you and say, hey, one of your kids that was on your caseload got his GD. I mean,
Right.
3 years later, but he got it. So when his current CA called me, his caseworker called me and told me, and I told her, give me his number because he changed his number because I keep all the kids' number. And I called him and I just told him how proud I was and what he was going to do. And that meant a lot to him because I haven't spoke to him in about 6 months or so. But just take the time. It's just the little things that you can do that makes a difference for these youth, or whatever. So I'm definitely passionate about this thing, and like my grandma would say, that her mom would say, my great grandma would say that's a star in your crown or whatever. When you do good stuff for people, that's a crown and that's a star in your crown. So
and you do great stuff for people even outside the work. So it's not even just your cases and stuff. Do you think there are any laws that hinder social workers from being effective on even another level, like taking it to the next level of effectiveness? Are there any laws that you think get in the way?
Probably you don't supposed to bring them to your house. Sometimes you want to bring them, feed them. Right. I have so many stories. Think about Mr. Tarpley.
Yeah.
Who's a youth that was homeless, and I just refused to allow him to not eat and sleep under a tree.
Right.
Because another thing I want to talk about is it is real when it comes to homeless foster youth.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a real thing, and we have so many that are homeless. And this particular youth, which he was a young adult at the time, was homeless, sleeping under a tree at a park, and was hungry. And the fact that he told me that, I was like, I can't eat. I'm not going to eat, and he haven't had nothing to eat, And my favorite scripture is, I was young but now I'm old.
Hello.
And I have that tattooed on me because I believe that I have never seen the righteous forsake me or his seed begging bread. So that is, I live by that thing. And I went and got him. And I know I wasn't supposed to, even though he wasn't in foster care anymore, but he was in foster care at one point. And I went and got him, and I allowed him to stay at my house that night or whatever. He slept on the couch in the living room, and I fed him and everything. And I figured out something the next day. So when people in this field and you can call and get a favor or whatever, and that's what I did, because I just could not sleep that night knowing that he's out and I'm in my bed and I'm full with food and he's hungry or whatever. So like I say, it's from the heart. It's definitely a passion for me. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I know that it's real with me, and anybody can tell you that. And it don't necessarily, like I said, have to be youth or
Right.
whatever. It can be anybody that come across my path. If I'm able to help, then I will. I will.
We look at what's going on in the country in regards to unarmed Black boys being murdered, and you join that with all of your years experience in social work. How has that shaped or molded the type of parent you are? You are the parent of two amazing Black boys, and so how does all of that shape how you are as a parent?
It makes me, when they go somewhere, I'm just like teaching them now, like, listen, when you get of this stage or of this age or whatever, you got to be careful. You can't just be out in the streets. We're in 2021 and we still dealing with racism for our Black folks. And what I want everybody to know, everybody that's Black and that's a male isn't a criminal. I have never been arrested, not one time. I never got expelled from school or suspended or whatever, but I'm tattooed up. I mean, I used to have goals in my mouth, but I got them removed or whatever. And I have a career, a professional career. I'm a director or whatever. So I try to show them that that don't have to be your story. You can be successful and Black and educated or whatever, because it's not just the other race that are successful. You can be successful. So and teach them to surround yourself around positive people. I see on social media they had this illustration of this fruit, and it was a rotten fruit, and it started rotting the other fruits that was in the bowl. And they had a capture something like, see how you can be around people that's rotten and then it end up coming up to you. So I'm a person that believe in being around positive people and positive energy. And if that's even for me to have to cut off family members, then I would do so, because I'm not about, a peace of mind is everything to me. So I just try to teach them about education and try to display it so they can see, okay, well, I see my dad, because I do it for the foster care youth, so why wouldn't I do it for my own? I'm definitely going to do it for my own as well. So I'm big on education for everybody, mines, not mines, everybody. So I just try to model that behavior so that they can see this positive Black successful role model, and that they call their dads.
Right. And it's not just the words for you, like you said, it's in the actions as well. I always say actions speak louder than words. So I think it's awesome when you have someone who instills all of this in people, but their actions reflects it. It makes them relatable. It makes people trust what you're saying. And it's why people turn to you. Youth, adults, whatever. When you are a man of your word, when your actions reflect that, and a word you said earlier, consistently,
yes.
I think that is vastly important. And it's why personally, professional, you've had the quality that you've had. So you're definitely someone who, I hope you pat yourself on the back enough. But yeah, it's amazing. I really, really appreciate just the work you've done in the youth, but also how you've positively affected all of us who have had the privilege to interact with you. I know I personally am very grateful to you. And so I definitely thank you for supporting me in this and doing this, having this conversation, just sharing this knowledge, because you are definitely a wealth of knowledge when you talk about 20 plus years in any kind of field. So yeah, it was very much appreciative. I really appreciate it, sir.
No problem. I enjoyed it. Social worker is my life, so I can talk about it all day long. And another thing, all of my family members think that I am their social worker. They calling me, this person want to know how you apply for food stamp, or this person say they got a case, and I'd be like, grandma, auntie, listen, they have to call a worker. Well, let me just put them on the phone. My mom do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't put me on the phone on the spot. Well, my son, he work at the child net. He
Yeah,
had the rate.
well, isn't that crazy?
Let me
Just
call him. So I have to tell them, don't do that. Don't do that.
yeah,
I mean, they think that I have all the answers when it comes to child welfare,
yeah. My family the
BCF,
same thing.
and everything. And I ain't do food stamps in so long. But when I
Right.
was doing it, we was doing it on paper,
Uh-huh.
and they had just came to the card from the money. So
Mm.
I'm like, listen, that's been many years ago. Many,
And when
many
you
years.
was doing it, was it DCF or was it HRS?
I was in North Carolina, so it was their
Okay,
county, Edgecombe County,
gotcha.
um, children and families up
Oh,
there. So
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
Until next time, sir, I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Take
You're
care,
welcome.
Mr.
Enjoy
Reeves.
your evening. All righty.
All right, you too. Bye. Well, that's it for the zone today. We are officially shutting it down. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, remember this. When you can't control what's happening, challenge yourself to control the way you respond to what's happening. That's where your power is. Holla.